Welcome back to GSR and welcome to round 2 of season 15. After an incredible opener in Australia, the grid now heads to Shanghai for the Chinese Grand Prix. And we've already seen tension, strategy and some serious pace in the first round of the season. And if the first race was anything to go by, this season is going to be electric. But before we head into the preview for the second race of the season, we're gonna do a quick recap then of round 1 Australia, and for that I am not alone. Joining me for this week's preview is Jake. He helps us break down the track, the strategies, and who we think could shine in Shanghai. But first of all, we're gonna look at the first round of the season. Jake, welcome mate, how are you doing?
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I think the first race was really interesting in Australia, and I think it's really set the tone, and sort of the strategy and incidents we had in both tiers have really sort of set a standard that this season's going to be a really big dogfight for everybody. And I think it's going to really change what's going to happen in China next, and I think it's going to make it really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. If you have seen the preview for the first round, which I had with 8 last week, we were already talking big about how we think the tiers will change, how much the drivers will have an impact, because we've got a lot of new drivers in, and we've already saw a lot of those new drivers having some serious pace. They were competing very well in our tiers. But we also talked about Australia being the first race of the season. We both really like it, Ada and me. Jake, how do you like Australia as a season opener?
I thought, well, especially this season, I thought it was really good. Quite a difficult track. Obviously, first street circuit and the traditional opener for the F1 calendar. It's sort of a very short lap. But it makes it really interesting because it means you can sort of open up the strategies quite a lot. You can one stop, two stop. It can sort of free up a bit of freedom in the strategy area, and also just provides good racing. 4 DRS zones the most on the calendar, and it's got a variety of quarter profiles. So I think it makes for a really good opener. And as I say, I think it provided a good opener for both tiers this season. Had a lot of incidents, which obviously were a big talking point, but also just sort of hoping people get grips to the new season with returning faces and new faces. So I think it was a great choice for season opener. I think it works really well, and I think it sort of provides a good build between sort of fast elements of the F1 circuits, but also a slower speed, especially in that final sector.
Yeah, definitely. And I also said to 8, I really like the atmosphere around Melbourne. I think it just kind of feels like the beginning of something, and that was definitely the case last week then, or this week as we are recording this on Sunday, in Australia and Melbourne again. Especially since they changed the track a little bit a couple of years ago. We have this very, very flowy middle sector now, without the small chicane there at the entry. It makes just feel the track much more complete now. It just got another much more nicer flow. And so that really feels amazing, both to drive and to watch. And quickly going over maybe the results now from tier 1. Quickly for qualifying, we've got Speed Demon taking a back-to-back pole. He had pole position there last season as well, and this season again. Just to get that out of the way first. But of course the race, that's what it's all about, and that was quite interesting, especially for you, Jake. You making starting last to first basically every race now, so you on purpose started last, and you got on the podium as well. Very good run from you. Speed Demon then not able to convert his pole into the win. He got P2 in the end though, but very good result. But of course the big outliner being MM Overdrive, our debutant, or one of our debutants I should say, making his first race appearance in GSR on Wednesday here in Australia, and he took the win. That was based off penalties though. On track he came home in P3, right behind Speed Demon and you. So, but of course, due to the bad penalties, then he got the win. I gotta say, great performance from him. What do you think about him? Do you think he could be a big player in this season?
Yeah, I mean, both of them really. But obviously, said MMO drive 1 from 6, great drive from him, and Speed Demon from pole showed great pace in that race. Obviously, I started from the back, so I've sort of got familiarised with Speed Demon, and I know he can be a big threat himself. He's very consistent. He'll always be on the podium. Usually, we saw that last season. Didn't actually take a win last season, interestingly, but he managed to just keep it consistent, and he obviously finished second in the championship above Lazar. So he's going to definitely be a threat, and he seems to be getting faster as sort of the game goes on. I think we saw it last season. He sort of evolved as the season went, and he sort of became this like consistently sort of P2, P3 driver, and that really helps him out in the sort of championship running. So I think he's going to be a really big threat this season for sort of everybody in Tier 1. I think he's sort of setting himself now as one of the front runners. And MM Overdrive, obviously, we know about debuting drivers performing well. We saw it with Thallow last season. He had a sort of rough debut, but he was also in the fight. There's a lot of new drivers coming in who can sort of help out and help out with the sort of fight at the front. And if MMO Drive can keep that form up, even with the poor qualifying, we saw his race pace was absolutely amazing. So if he can keep up his form, I'm sure he could be a very big title threat himself as well. So I think them two are going to be standouts this season from what we saw in Australia, and they sort of set a standard for themselves as well to sort of keep going and be there.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope so at least, because yeah, I too got a feeling that this could be a very great season for Tier 1. Yeah, we also got some unlucky drivers, I gotta say, is Thallow only in P8 with the fastest lap though, so he gets that extra point. But yeah, P8 way too low for him, considering the fact that he even won 1 or 2 races last season quite comfortably even. And yeah, Ivy also only a DNF after a sad DNF and not so great race from him overall. But yeah, I think we saw already in the first round that this season is gonna be very competitive in Tier 1. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward towards the next races or the season overall, because I think this could be very great. But yeah, we'll come back to the drivers a little bit later. Quickly going over the race results then from Tier 2 as well. So for quali, first of all, we had Amaranda taking pole position with a 1:30.508. If you think that's a little bit slow, yeah, that's because we got some a full wet qualifying session, where it was very tight between the intermediates and the full wet. Actually, I think the grid was pretty spread on the decision whether the full wets were quicker or the intermediates. It was a very interesting qualifying session. And for the race then, we have Amaranda converting the pole into the win plus the fastest lap. So yeah, very good first race of the season for him. Yeah, that is gonna be very exciting then to see if you can repeat that at China maybe. Myself coming home in P2, but it will be P3 because Hapalito got a 10-second time penalty and that is gonna be removed. So yeah, P3 then for me. Hapalito then also on the podium on his debut here in the Ferrari, so good job from him. And yeah, Holly then P3, Callum, Holly P4, will that be Callum P5 and Abra P6. It's before the penalties have been applied, so there might be 1 or 2 positions that could change, but overall it's that. Sorry, Jake. What are your thoughts about Tier 2 then? Have you, what have you gotten? What have you learned in the first race of the season for that tier?
Yeah, so obviously, just want to specify, I didn't watch Tier 2, so I'm kind of looking at these results for a blind eye, because I don't actually know sort of who got unlucky in the race. But it seems if Miranda sort of dominated from it. Obviously, if you say the 10-second finish, 3/10 ahead of Hapalito, so that seemed like quite a close finish. But yeah, I know quite a lot of drivers in Tier 2. Obviously, yourself, I know well, and obviously Callum, who raced in Tier 1 last season, who had actually some decent performances here and there. Could have got a few podiums even in Tier 1 last season. I think Canada was a big one, but sort of made a gamble on the strategy that didn't really work. Obviously Abra, and I know quite a lot of drivers in Tier 2, so I can sort of judge the how they're going to perform and whatnot. But it seems pretty competitive so far, and judging by the amount of incidents we had as well with the tickets. I'm sure it was quite a chaotic race, and obviously I think what you just said about the full wet in qualifying as well, that you can really sort of gauge how sort of a driver's comfortable for tracking the wet. Miranda put it on pole by 9/10. Obviously, in changeable conditions, you know, knowing to make either a switch onto a dry or a wet is really important, and you know, to be able to judge that and set a pole in sort of changeable conditions, or even wet conditions, is impressive, and it shows sort of how sort of comfortable a driver is with the track. But yeah, no, seems very impressive, very dominant from Miranda to get all sort of clean sweep of fastest lap, pole and the win. You know, you don't see that very often, and I'm sure he's going to set a standard in Tier 2 this season of he's going to be the one to beat.
Yeah, and basically it is kind of the same as in Tier 1. Maybe not that dramatic, but we saw already in the first race that we got a couple of guys that seem to be quick enough to win races at least, and maybe fight for the title. We had, I think, a very good fight between Miranda and Hapalito through basically out the whole race. And yeah, we got also Holly involved for a long time. So maybe he could be also joining in there as well. And Callum, gotta say, he was quick as well. He was like in this train at the top for the majority of the race as well. So yeah, very interested to see. I don't know where I stand, so might be a lucky one-off race then for me. But yeah, maybe, who knows, I could be on the podium a couple of times more, so yeah, let's see. But that's what the future brings, and the future takes us to Shanghai. So let's talk about the next stop then. Shanghai International Circuit in China. Very interesting track. We've got a lot of sweeping corners, we got a lot of fast corners, we got a lot of slow corners. Obviously we got that long back straight. That is just a DRS fight then all the way down into the hairpin, the second last corner. Yeah, I personally really love the track. I think it's such an amazing track, and I'm happy to see it back on the GSR calendar now. Jake, what are your thoughts about the track then?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant track, to be honest. Obviously 16 turns. It's got every single sort of corner profile as well. You know, one of my highlights of this track is the first sector. You know, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's very flowing. Turn 1's a massive right-hander. You know, you've got to carry the speed through, also managing you've got to carry the minimum speed, but also managing sort of where you brake and how late you can brake and how much you push it, because it's easy to lock a front at the turn 1, and then sort of turn 2 is a kind of nothing corner, but it's sort of, you know, the sort of radius of the corner sort of decreases as you get towards 3, and then 4 is more of a sweeping again, almost flat out. It's very interesting. It's gonna provide great racing through that section. The middle sector, you have to really follow close, and it can be difficult sometimes. So you've got 6 as a hairpin, which is also an overtaking opportunity out of 4 and 5. 7's a very fast left-hander, and then you've got 8, 9, 10, which is more of a slow speed section. You've got to sort of, again, carry the speed through it. Very minimum speed track this, low grip as well. And then 11, 12, 13, again, just a really low grip part of the track, and it can be really hard to stay with somebody through there onto the massive back straight. One of the longest DRS zones on the calendar, one of the longest straights. You're hitting, you know, your top speeds there. 14 again, the hairpin, brilliant overtaking spot. You can sort of maybe go around the outside, inside, switch back, whatever. It's just a great track for racing. I think it's very underrated, especially in real life, underappreciated as well for what it provides. And sometimes, you know, as we saw in Australia in Tier 2, you can get a wet race in China. You know, you can't throw that out of the equation. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to provide a little racing this season.
Yeah, what I really like about this track is you got so many overtaking opportunities. You already mentioned a couple of them. Obviously, turn 1 is always an overtaking opportunity, and especially on this track, it might be not one of the best in terms of that it's easy to overtake here, but one of the best to watch, for first of all, but also to fight with each other, because you can do, in the past I've seen people do 3 switchbacks here or more even, because of the profile of the corner. It is so amazing to fight through there. Then you mentioned it down then to turn 60, the first hairpin basically. One corner that I feel like over the past few years have become more and more the number 1 overtaking opportunity on this track. Even though you have obviously the long run towards turn 14, but I feel we see more overtakes happening into turn 6, because yeah, all the way down then to turn 14, another overtaking opportunity. It's just such a long way, and if the car ahead also has DRS, and if it's all just one massive DRS train, it is quite difficult to overtake even there. You need to have a big speed difference there then to make the move. But yeah, overall, very amazing track. Happy to be back. What do you think is the main difference here between a good qualifying and a good race? How do you need to change the car from qualifying to race to also do good? Or do you think just you basically use the same setup for, one reason?
Obviously, the complexity of part firmware plays a part in that, because obviously there's certain parts of the car you can change, so your front wing, your brake differentials, and your tyre pressures. I think this is a track where you actually sort of, sorry, I should probably explain before I say this. Tyre pressures can play a big part on this F1 game, so especially your rear tyre pressures. If you don't have them a certain window throughout the race, your tyres can overheat. So a lot of it is going to be getting your pressures right and also managing your rear tyres. It's quite a rear demanding track, which sort of means that the setup wise, you've got to sort of be very conservative in qualifying. You can push qualifying, up to drive, it's driver's opinion, and it is quite an easy one stop, but the tyres can wear down, and sort of, as I just elaborated about the low grip, when you get to about 20-30% tyre wear and you're on low grip, it becomes really difficult to manage, and traction becomes a real issue. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people manage the rear tyres around here. In terms of sort of differences between qualifying, I'd say maybe a front wing adjustment might be needed. Probably a bit less front wing than you had in qualifying. You want that extra bite in qualifying to sort of get the car into the corner, and you don't really need that as much in the race because you're going to be managing. So probably that's the main big difference, I would say. But not too much, because we're obviously bound by part firmware, but still it can make a massive difference. So the little change you can make and the strategy you can go for.
Yeah, and we already covered that as well. You're going to do probably again, starting from last position, like you announced at the beginning of the season. Do you think about that already? Do you maybe practice this a little bit more? Because I think Shanghai turn 1 is a very interesting corner at the start. It could be also a very dangerous corner, because you always have one or two people that completely send it down the inside in turn 2 to be also side by side with somebody that they are far behind into turn 3. Do you think about it as well? What are your plans on that? Maybe even chilling out for the start? Maybe just let them all crash each other out and stay at the back? Or what are your plans for that?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be very situational, dependent on sort of where maybe sort of actually the grid size first of all, but also I think it's very situational, like how good a start you get. So, for example, in Australia, I was quite cautious at the start, and it cost me a warning, which I say robbed. It was my fault, but I robbed myself of a race win there, basically, because I would have had it on track, which obviously it's annoying, but that's just part of racing. So, I'd say the main issue is just sort of gauging. Sorry, that's not a word. I'd say the main issue is sort of being quite conservative, but also knowing when to attack and knowing where there's an opportunity to make. And I'd say coming through the field is more about sort of your own, you need the pace to do it, but you also need the racecraft to keep your nose clean. And sometimes you've got to realise that if a move's not on, you can't make the move. And to pick up the points here and there, that makes a big difference. So I'd say for turn 1, 2, 3, when it's tightening, you've just got to pick your moments. And I've got experience with doing that, so it should be completely fine. But just for sort of, just gauging how and where to attack and where to brake, and it can be very big issue, especially on cold tires at the start.
Yeah, that's something we really wanna look out for. Then the start, obviously, always a big talking point. But I think at a track like Shanghai here, it's gonna be very interesting and to see what happens after. Let's talk about the strategies then for a bit. You already said that this is a very it is a track that's really bad for the rear tires. I want to say we saw in Australia a very conservative strategy. The softs rarely have been touched by any driver. Mediums and hards were definitely the way to go, which obviously we saw overall on this game. Like the softs you barely can't use. You either gonna be on the mediums or the hards. In Australia we saw even that many people were starting on hards. I was quite surprised by that, but I was one of them as well. Yeah, but how do you think then for China? What do you think will happen there? Do we see the same kind of tire strategies there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, this game's predominantly medium hard. China's sort of it is a track where tire wear does make a difference, but it should be a one stop for most people. But the two stop, if you can make it work, you can make it work at the end of the day. So you can't rule it out, especially with safety cars and things like that. But just everybody be just looking at the tire wear closely, as the front left specifically, because obviously with it being a clockwise circuit, the front left takes a lot, especially through one, through the fast right hander going onto the back straight. So there's a lot of places here where the left side of the tire really gets sort of worn down, and you can really see a big sort of differential between the left and the right hand side. So they're going to be taking a beating from the long corners. And I'd say probably a well-timed undercut could make or break sort of your race here. I know from experience from when I've done China races here in the past, the undercut can be very powerful, but also you can't sort of negate the overcut that you can get by just sort of managing your tyres and extending. You'll have that tyre grip on the last stint. So it's a very unpredictable race on the strategy. You can go either way, and I'm sure people are going to be looking out for it. And I just say, the track itself is very unpredictable, but it's also sort of how people gauge the track. And something like a safety car can completely flip the order. And if someone gammers on the tyre at the right time, you can make a big difference, and you can make a lot of gains. So it's very make or break, but it's very interesting to see how everyone's going to adapt to it. I think it's going to make for a good race.
Yeah, now obviously we didn't have China on the calendar last season. Not sure when we had it the last time in GSR anyway. But I know for a fact that you are in various different leagues as well. And in ETSR, for example, when we're heading into China then next week on Wednesday, the last China race for you in ETSR will be gone by 3 weeks. So you got quite a little bit of experience then, not too far ago. Is that something that you think gives you a little bit of an advantage, even though it is in a different league? Do you think you can get some information out of your race back then here over into GSR, or do you think just each league is so unique that its own challenge, and there could be so many difference to the weather or even the temperatures that could make such a big difference that even though you raced just 3 weeks ago, it doesn't really help you at all?
Well, I think it does help, especially having prior experience on certain tracks. So, I raced here in ETSR. I was online that day. Today I'm on, on Wednesday I'm on no line. So that's going to make a bit of a difference. But you can gauge the strategy. We had a wet race there, and I've learned a bit from the strategy and of when and where not to pit. Because there's sort of opportunities where you can pit and you gain a big advantage, but there's opportunities where you don't, and you also gain an advantage by just going longer. So I'd say there is a correlation between leads, but as you say, it's very situational. The tyre wear on the day could be a lot lower than we expect, or a lot higher. The game can provide for that. I'm thinking back to Brazil last season. We were all thinking it was going to be a guaranteed two-stop, and it was a guaranteed two-stop in a way, because the two-stop was faster, but you saw Aid stay out because his tyres could make it. So it makes you think, if somebody at the front had maybe done a one-stop, maybe they would have gained actually from it. So that makes it very unpredictable. And Shanghai can be one where the sort of wear varies. But I would say the main experience I've got from this is I raced it in for AERT on no line. I have got no line experience around here, and I know I'm sort of know where to gauge and how to manage on that. So that's going to really benefit me. So I would say yes, having prior experience does really help you. But I'd say it's especially when you've got something like no line, or you've maybe got a situational sort of, even something like you did it in a realistic car or something like that can really help you out. And it can change the complexity of the race, and it can sort of make you like sort of more aware of what China's going to provide for you and where you can make your opportunities last.
Yeah, all right then, let's continue with the next part then. We talked already about how the season started. We've talked about the track. Let's talk drivers now. we already saw in Tier 1, we mentioned it, lots of quick drivers, so it is basically anyone's game, but if we talk about it a little bit more detailed, who do you think can be good this weekend? Obviously, yeah, you're always gonna be there. You are our current champion, and we saw in Australia for a good reason why you are. So always gotta count you in. But who do you think can also be putting up quite a challenge this week? We saw Overdrive taking the win in the first race, so he will be definitely looking strong and maybe continuing his momentum there. Speed Demon, again, he took the second pole in Australia back to back. He had pole there last season as well. He was a championship contender for a long time as well. Do you think he could be a bigger challenge, or maybe somebody else even?
Yeah, well, as you say that, you can't cut out sort of the Haas team. You know, you had Hitman in that race, and he was very strong throughout most of it, and you had Fallow as well. Both of them are going to provide a really good challenge. They could be a very big threat for the constructors, but also Alfie as well in the McLaren. He's going to be a driver to watch in China. You know, he's going to want to come back. I'm not sure if he's racing. I'll check that quickly, but if he's racing, he's going to want to. He's going to want to bounce back from what happened in Australia, because it was a tough race for him, and we know he's got pace. We saw it last season. He's going to want to win this race to show everybody that I'm in the championship picture. And there's a lot of teams in there who've got serious pace in the midfield. So I think, you know, if we're talking about the sort of drivers to watch, it's not just the drivers, it's also the teams as well, you know, and how they interact with each other. And can make strategy really interesting. It can really provide some good racing, and I think there are a lot of drivers going into this race that can be really sort of wanting to make their mark and stamp their foot on their championship sort of challenge.
Yeah, speaking of the teams, obviously that's gonna be very interesting as well. I mean, after the first race, we have Williams leading the constructors, but only with 25 points. Then we got Red Bull behind also with 24 points, so very close. It's a neck and neck. And yeah, just the start of the season. Obviously, that's one of the reasons why the gap is so small. But it already shows that the teams are very equal when it comes to performance of the drivers. Like, they've got very same pace wise on those drivers. I think this could be a really great fight in the constructors. You obviously racing for Alpine again this season. Just looking at the season overall now after the first race, obviously it's only the first race, but do you think this could be harder for you to fight? I mean, you're also starting from the back of the field, but in general, do you think this could be a more competitive season than last season?
Absolutely, yeah. It's looking like it's going to be one of the tightest seasons we've had, and the margins are razor thin. So I think we saw with Fallow, and even myself actually, you know, one mistake cost you 5 positions maybe, and it's just going to be consistency. We saw it last season. I don't want to sort of tuck myself up, but you know, you look at me, Speed Demon, and Lazar, and we were constantly scoring points. I know Lazar had a bit of a troubled end to the season, but you know, for me and Speed Demon, basically a podium every race. It's consistency that matters, and it's gonna, as you say, it's gonna be harder for me, especially starting at the back. It's gonna be hard for me to sort of keep consistent, and you know, when you've got margins that are like this, and you've got a field that's so tight, and one that's dependent, you know, drivers can come out of nowhere. It really makes it like sort of neck and neck, and I think mistakes are going to happen. You know, it's part of racing, but it's who can bounce back from mistakes and who can sort of limit them. That's going to form who's in the title challenge towards the end of the season. It's going to make it really interesting. I think, as I say, combine that with basically the excitement China builds, it's looking like the championship picture is going to really hot up this week. This race on Wednesday looks like it's really gonna sort of kick on Wednesday. It's going to form this sort of title picture where we know, okay, who's going to be in the fight, who's not in the fight, or who's maybe going to be struggling, and who's going to have to bounce back and get in the title fight if they want any chance of getting this title. So it's going to be interesting, and I think the championship's definitely hotting up.
Yeah, definitely, and that completely also counts towards tier 2 as well. I was just looking at the standings right now. Gotta say, we've already got 8 teams from our 10 teams scored points already in the first race of the season. So only Ferrari and Racing Bulls so far without 0 points. Maybe they can change that in the second race of the season. I mean, we also had 8. He disconnected with 2 laps to go and was actually very well running inside the points with fresh soft tires, but his AI pitted again on the second last lap with fresh soft tires. I don't know why. So Ferrari could have well scored points as well. Racing Bulls, yeah, a little bit unlucky. Don't know if we got Racing Bull drivers even in. No, I don't think, but that was the reason then. So, I mean, already a lot of the teams scored points. I think we could definitely see all teams score points over the course of the season. I mean, or maybe just a little bit earlier than last season. I think Williams scored very late points last season. And yeah, for tier 2, it's basically the same, only that the top 7 teams points scored. Mercedes, Aston Martin, and McLaren so far without points there. And we have, yeah, obviously the results are not quite completed yet, so might be a little bit of a change here. But yeah, looking into tier 2, I think this could also still be very close and again between Miranda and Tapalito. Of course, we have a lot of rookies in this season, so we can't quite know how good their pace is. We might some might had a bad weekend now in Australia and will come back stronger in China. Some maybe had an exceptional race here in Australia and will be a little bit slower than in China. So yeah, a lot of things we're gonna keep an eye out for the second race then. Or like I said, you haven't watched tier 2. You got anything left to say for that? I think I just thought it might be a little bit hard for you to make any guesses there or assumptions. So,
but yeah, I will. I'm gonna go back and watch Australia after this. Probably should have watched it, to be honest. But make sure you watch it as well. Make sure you tune in for both tiers because they're both really interesting. And yeah, tier 2, as I say, the fight's really interesting. You know, you've got the sort of rookies coming in, and they're already making the mark. And it's not tier 2. You know, you can see the development that people make in sort of in a lower tier. You know, everybody starts somewhere. Not in sort of an insulting way, but everybody sort of, you know, everybody starts with a foundation. Even I, you know, when I was in GSR, I started in tier 4. I quickly got moved up, but there's people who have been in tier 4 who are now in tier 1. It's not like, you know, it's not like you're bound by where your pace is. And you can see it with sort of Miranda and, you know, you get rookies coming in and even sort of, you know, yourself in P2 and Callum, you know, the tier does make for interesting racing because people try to push themselves to be the best driver they can be. And I think tier 2 is going to be interesting because you want to sort of impress, you want to provide, you want to move yourself up. You know, a lot of people have a fire in the heart when, you know, you want to be in tier 1, and it makes people, you know, push harder. It makes the races a lot more interesting. So I think the rookies coming in and sort of being one to immediately sets a standard that they're not gonna sort of back down to the sort of the more experienced guy like yourself, Callum, Abra, that F1 boy. Even I've been in the league for, you know, 5 years now. It's gonna make a very interesting tier 2, and if we talk about a tier 2 title fight, that could be one of the closest we've seen because people are gonna be pushing, and that leads to mistakes, and mistakes can be costly, but people can learn from them as well. So I think it's gonna be a very interesting championship picture. I think that leads us on nice to sort of our predictions for this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I will also just gotta point out that we got a couple of drivers in who actually never had driven a league before. So yeah, this could be also for them a very good opportunity to like basically for F2 in real life, like having the 1 or maybe 2 seasons in tier 2, getting to learn how to behave basically in a league, how to drive good and be constant, have a good pace and stuff like that, and then at some point move to tier 2, tier 1 then, and yeah, fight for the big one there, I would say. But yeah, let's see what happens then. You also mentioned then the predictions, and this will be then the last part of our preview ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix here. Predictions obviously gonna be a little bit difficult since we are both involved in our respective tiers. So I will basically ask you, who do you think can be the biggest challenge for you? Then do you maybe even think, or do you even say yourself that you could fight for the title? Do you maybe say it's gonna be tough because there are so many quick drivers that will run away, since China isn't maybe one of your best race, but yeah, overall, who do you think can challenge for the win then in China?
Well, I think, I'm not counting myself out of a win, first of all. I think I've got the pace to do it, and starting at the back doesn't help, but it's a challenge I've set myself, and that means that I want to keep winning, and I want to win races from the back, because I want that is my sort of challenge. That's my standard I've set for myself. But if we're going from sort of front runners and qualifying, excluding myself, I'd probably go with Speed Demon. He's got the experience. He's got one lap pace. He just has a clean race to convert it. I think he's going to be able to take sort of a lot of wins this season. But it's not easy, and as we said, it's very tight. So I think I think there's a lot of calls that can be seen as sort of, oh yeah, I can see why he'd win it. I think Alfie's also a good shout. I think he's going to want to come back, as I've already stated. But I'm going to go with Speed Demon. I think he's got the raw pace to do it, and I think he's got the racecraft. So I think he's probably the favourite going into this, but you can't count anybody else.
Yeah, I definitely can understand your point there. I might go with Overdrive again. I think he had a very good race in Australia. Maybe wasn't the quickest, but he was the cleanest. He didn't have any penalties, which basically in the end, secured him the win. And with that win in the bag, I think he could be he could have a shot at the win here again, because he might have he might be so confident now that he can win here too. But honestly, it's wide open, and that's exactly what makes this season in GSR so exciting. We have so many drivers that could fight for the win, and maybe someone who didn't really was in the spotlight in Australia could also have a say in here. Maybe 8 also had a very good run in ETSR a couple of weeks ago. ETSR, one of our partner leagues, go check them out as well. So yeah, he might have a chance at it too. You never know. And also you still got the weather that could be unpredictable. Safety cars, which I don't think are that regular seen in China. They still happen, but I think it's not that many times, because the walls are quite further away from the track than in Australia, for example. So just a spin or something that doesn't have to end in the wall to trigger a safety car, but who knows. And looking at tier 2, what are your predictions for that? I mean, that might be even a little bit more unpredictable.
I'm gonna go for Miranda again. I think you can't ignore that dominance he sort of displayed in qualifying with the gap he had. I'm gonna go for Miranda. As I say, I completely agree with your call of Overdrive. He's definitely one of the favourites, and it's just the same as what you said. Miranda's win in Australia is too strong to ignore, especially as a rookie coming in. It's very impressive to see somebody just come in, step up, and be a winner. But honestly, it's wide open. I think that's what makes it exciting at the end of the day. So, I agree with you. I think the rookies are going to be sort of a new guy. I say rookies, they're not rookies. The new guys coming in, they're going to be very, very interesting to monitor. So I'm going to go Miranda again. I've got confidence that he could maybe pull off another win and maybe set himself as sort of the paragon for tier 2. So he's my pick.
Yeah, then I'm gonna go with one of the Ferraris actually, which should make 8 very happy that I said that. So Hapalito had a very good race also with Miranda. It was very close between the two of them. I haven't watched the whole entire race back as well. I just saw during the race that those two were so close to each other the whole time basically. I think it could be very close again. And also Holly. He was in there as well. He got a little bit of front wing damage, which slowed him down just enough for me to catch him, basically. So, that was a little bit lucky for me, but I think in a regular race without any damage also, I think Holly could have a shot at the win here today. And maybe even Callum. He was quick there as well. He also got a little bit unlucky during the race, but he could be... I could imagine that Callum is being one of the laughing third ones. Like, if something happens at the front, he could be right there and snatch the win away then for the positions. So I wouldn't count him out either. Yeah, and I think with that we are basically done now. I think we covered everything then that you need to know for the second round of the season. Jake, you got anything to say for basically the viewers or any of our rookies there? What advice would you give them then ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix?
I'd say China is a difficult track, but it's also one that you can get your head around quickly. You can perform with sort of Piastri. I'm going to use a real life reference. Sort of Piastri this year, he got his head around the track really quickly on the sprint. Finished second behind Hamilton. That led him into the pole to win the race. So if you can master the track before you go in, you've got the confidence. You're gonna see yourself up there at the top. So my main advice is just get your practice in, get your confidence, and then anything's possible.
Yeah. All right then. So that's a good advice, definitely. Then for our drivers, our rookies especially, and yeah, that wraps it up for our GSR weekend preview for round 2, the Chinese Grand Prix. Guys, make sure to tune in then for the races. On Wednesday Tier 1 and on Friday Tier 2, of course. The Twitch channel is linked in the Discord, and I see if I can get it linked here under the video as well. And yeah, until then, I'm Soren, and I was joined by Jake today, alias Vapor, our champion from the GSR Season 14, and we'll see you then on track, guys. Bye bye.